My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I've shared with you of how the resurrection would be at the end, not at the end of the Christian age, not at the end of time. I want to drive that point home today very powerfully. Paul says, obviously, he said, then comes the end. Now, I pointed out how it could not be the end of the Christian age. It can't be the end of the gospel, functioning as the gospel. Well, Paul says that the resurrection would be when the law, that was the strength of sin, and when the strength of sin would be removed. In other words, it would be the end of the law that was the strength of sin. Now, here's what I want you to ask yourself to contemplate. In Paul's theology, in Paul's writings, what was, quote, the law, unquote, that was the strength of sin? Well, here's something you need to know. And by the way, in numerous formal debates, I have asked my opponents, in Paul's theology, what was the law that Paul described as the strength of sin? Now, a couple of my opponents saw a train coming because they had already witnessed, viewed, or heard my other debates. And so they even refused to answer the question candidly, straightforwardly. But the majority of my debate opponents have said, well, it's the law of Moses. In 2016, I had a formal public debate with Dr. David Hester. In 2017, I had another formal debate with him. Prior to the first debate, I asked Dr. David Hester, please define as specifically as possible the term the law as used by Paul in 1 Corinthians 15. Dr. Hester wrote, the law of Moses, because the law of Moses can never deliver from sin. Well, Dr. David Hester was absolutely spot on. In the entirety of that debate, and in the entirety of our debate in Montgomery, Alabama, I kept pressing the point. Here's the argument that I gave. The resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be when the law that was the strength of sin was overcome and removed. But the law that was the strength of sin was the law of Moses, David Hester. Therefore, the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 would be or will be when the law of Moses is removed. Oh, we got a major problem here. David Hester said the law of Moses was removed at the cross. Well, that means the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 was removed at the cross. Look, folks, I don't care how you define the law, in one sense, but whatever you define as the law that was the strength of sin in Paul's theology, then the resurrection is at the point of time in which or at which that law, the strength of sin, is removed. Thus, if you say that the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 is yet future to us today, you are thereby saying that law, the strength of sin, remains valid and binding on man today. So let me ask you to consider, how do you define the law that Paul said was the strength of sin? If man is still under the law that was the strength of sin, then clearly resurrection has not occurred. If Christ has removed the law that was the strength of sin, then I don't care how you define the body or death in 1 Corinthians 15. If you say Christ has overcome the law that was the strength of sin, then the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 has been fulfilled. Now, Lord willing, we're going to get into detail in our definition of the law that was the strength of sin. Because you see, folks, when you define the law that was the strength of sin as the Mosaic law, you wind up destroying your own futurist eschatology. As I press the point, that David Hester admitted that the law was the strength of sin, in his very last speech of the last debate, Dr. David Hester completely, totally, radically changed his own definition of the law that was the strength of sin. And unfortunately, since it was the last speech of the debate, I did not get a chance to respond. But that shows you the utter desperation. It shows you the utter reality, the undeniable reality that Dr. David Hester realized that he had destroyed his own futurist eschatology. And the entire amillennial, the entire postmillennial, the entire dispensational view of the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15. Yet he had given the proper definition of the law that was the strength of the sin. We're going to show you that. So I'll see you on the flip side.